he was coming here, and I was like, great, I'm going to go to see my favorite producer. And I showed up, and there was like 14 people in the club.
If you want to get anything done, you have to approach it in the right way.
We just started throwing small shows, and we sold, I want to say, close to 300 tickets across 5 venues and all local DJs.
There are so many subgenres and different flavors of electronic music.
That is something that's going to make you sit and think, how did they do this?
It looks a little bit different, and it sounds a lot different. We're still all enjoying music.
One week you may have like a Chinese religious group that's staying in the hotel, and now we're playing for them, and the next week it's the rodeo, and the week after that it's a furry convention. Like, who knows what this city is going to put in front of you? It's because it's cotton candy. You're not going to eat it all the time, but every once in a while I need break stuff.
Welcome to the Reno Live Podcast. My name is Joel.
My name is Brian.
We're joined today by Brian Obi Wan Solo, a local DJ. Brian, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to support what you guys are doing and trying to bring more people into the music scene in Reno. That is entirely what I've always wanted to do and be a part of, and it's why, like I told you before we started, it's the reason why I live here.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the music scene
That's
in here,
awesome.
I probably would just move to the Bay or something like that, you know?
Yeah. Well, because you're originally from Detroit.
That's correct, yeah. So I was born in Utah, but my entire formative life from kindergarten until I went to college was in just outside Detroit. So that's where a lot of like my musical influence comes from. It's the thing that's nice about Detroit is that it has so many different styles that come from that area, and they all get along because at the time when I was growing up, it was, for anyone who knows Detroit, it was during the Kwame Kilpatrick era. And if anyone knows about that, they know what I mean. Like, it was a mayor who allegedly did some bad things and went to jail for it. And so the city wasn't really well run at that time. It's so much better now. But they had to share venues. So like, I remember going to shows where they had like a hip hop act that opened for a ska band and a techno DJ closed. And no one yelled, no one got mad. They just kind of like shifted crowds. And so, but if you wanted to stay and pay for that whole thing, it was the same ticket. So if you showed up for the first one, you got to stay in the venue. So you got to go and see all these things. And that was so nice about Detroit, is that it accepted all those things. It didn't have these like arbitrary boundaries of like, you can't go to this if you are that. And so that is what in Reno I also experience.
Interesting. In Detroit, is there sort of a maybe a neighborhood or a central location where there's a bunch of music venues or locations where maybe you can just go to and stay there for, even if you're not staying at the same exact venue, maybe you can...
Within a few blocks, yeah. I mean, like I said, when I was younger, it wasn't the greatest thing to do.
Sure.
Like, this will give my age away. That when I first started going, I would go as like, I was a punk rock skateboard kid. Like, loved Pennywise, NoFX, all that's what I loved listening to. So I'd go downtown for those shows, and the promoters for all of at the time, there were a lot of abandoned spaces. There still are. But these promoters for these electronic shows would come by and throw flyers on the ground, and they'd have a phone number on them. And you had to call them, and it was the voicemail to where the address was. And then you had to ask people, where is this?
Right.
So it was a very different culture. I mean, now, my favorite festival, I'm a one festival person, it's Movement in Detroit. I absolutely love it. It is the most defined American electronic music festival. It's been going since 1999. And during that, it was just a couple weeks ago during Memorial Day weekend. And for that, like, you can go 24 hours a day for 7 days a week within probably like a 2-mile radius, and there's a whole bunch of different clubs now. Whereas before, they were kind of like underground spaces, or, I mean, were they registered? Who knows? But now they're a lot better. It's a lot more of a collective group, and all those people that started those underground scenes are now becoming much more recognized for what they are. So there's a lot more investment. The city of Detroit is really behind it now, whereas before they kind of put up with it. And so now, they realized that they were, the very first one they ever had, they didn't think anyone would come, and 1.1 million people showed up, most of them from Europe, because that was where the sound was very popular. And so they're like, oh, there's a huge festival from where this sound comes from. Why would we not go to that? So they showed up, and the city was like, what the hell is going on? Why are there a whole bunch of Dutch people in there? So that has just made it's techno mecca. Every year I make the pilgrimage back and see all the same acts that started those parties when I was young are now like defining their own stage lineups, and they're the closer, and on this huge massive setup that, the stage doesn't really have a lot of production value behind it in terms of like an EDC or a Tomorrowland. But the music is always the most important focus. And that is what, again, Reno has always allowed me to be, is that I don't have to transform into something. I can just contain multitudes of what I want to play, what I want to experience, who I want to give my money to, that sort of thing.
Can you expand a little bit on Reno now, juxtaposed to that and the reasons that you're saying, this is why I want to live here and I don't want to leave? How has it, when you got here, how did it capture you? Where is it now, and where's it going?
So when I moved here, I didn't move here with any knowledge of, not for music. That was not the reason I came here. I came here for graduate school. I got my PhD from UNR in molecular biology. And then I thought I'd just go find a job somewhere else. But as the degree progressed, I started to go out and see more shows. And I started to realize that the house music community was getting bigger, because that is where I had always music is always where I found my community, because it doesn't have a lot of like boundaries and rules. It's just, this is what we relate on. And that's how I've always enjoyed that. So I think right when we were talking before, I'd said the first show I ever went to is I didn't go to any show my first 2 years of school because I wanted to be very serious about it. Then I went to a show from, for people who know around here, his name's Ardalan. He's my favorite producer. He's an Iranian-American from San Francisco who just makes very goofy but very well-designed music that like is not just this four-to-the-floor hitting you in the face, but it has that same level of production value. He was coming here, and I was like, great, I had just passed a big exam. I'm going to go to see my favorite producer. And I showed up, and there was like 14 people in the club.
Goodness.
And that disheartened me. I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to go to these anymore, because I'm not a community organizer in the sense. I'm very good at helping and continuing, but like grabbing people together and say, let's start something. I probably am not great at that. But so after that, I just started seeing like, okay, I'll go to this show or different house things. And at one point there is a group, the BLT, this little symbol here. Yeah. So a bunch of those people started just kind of connecting. And I know the very first one I wasn't there for it was at Z Bar. And we all make fun of it because they started playing like very popular in this region is Burner House. A lot of it's called like Ama Piano or Afro House. It's close to that style. And that's not in the Midwest. It just doesn't exist. And so I was like, this is interesting. I'd never heard it. And they had an easy up over their decks. And an artist in town, Vera Paints on Instagram, went up to them and was like, you can do better than an easy up. And so that was the first time that like the DJs were connecting with the artists. And then we have found more promoter friends. Then I got joined in, like it was someone who I was dating at the time who then said, hey, you should come to this meeting with these people. And I did. And that is where I found this group. And that BLT had not started at that point, but from that is where it ended up growing into. And so after we realized we all had this love of house music, we just started realizing that there were actually different styles that we all liked, different niche genres. And so that allowed us to expand into more and more people while also including everybody, which is, Reno's the biggest little city, right? BLT stands for biggest little tribe. Like the whole point is we're going to keep getting bigger, but it will be a Reno-centric thing, right? Because, we want to make sure that we're making Reno the focus of what we're doing rather than any individual within the group. So
right. Well, you said back home in Detroit, the venues that really mixed the genres together. How would you describe that here in Reno? Because that's something that Joel and I are really trying to do, is just bring the whole live music community together. We have our own like country followers, underground punk here. There's a lot of jazz musicians coming out of UNR. Just being in the EDM scene here in Reno, what's your connection with other genres here?
Well, in general, the one thing I will say is the term EDM, just so people in the audience are listening, I am aware, that's a term that a lot of people really don't like. Yeah. It's just I'm not saying I don't care what you call any genre. It doesn't matter. But it's just the electronic music scene in general, right? Yeah. That's how it's, but that is the thing that we do well is bringing other people in. The reason that's easy for us is because we all essentially use the same instrumentation, right? Whether you're playing very hard dubstep or you're playing the smoothest jazz lounge music you've ever had, the equipment is identical.
Right.
And so if you want to have, a jazz quartet and then you want to have a rock band, well, you have to have 30 minutes of a changeover, right? And that's what makes building the community in the electronic scene a little bit easier, in my opinion, because you don't have to have that downtime necessarily. But the advantage of the rock scene and the jazz scene is when you have those breakdown times, it allows for that social interaction.
Right.
So that's why we, just doing things in clubs, not always the best thing, because then you're just yelling at each other. I mean, I love it, but you're not going to like build community through just a club.
Right.
But throwing outdoor events or getting together to do like floating down the river or something like that. But in the scene, like the rock scene, being able to integrate into the electronic scene, I don't know really what to do. Like that cross promotional stuff, I don't know how to attract those people. Other than to play, like we said earlier, music that they know in a style of house, where it's Motown house or disco house or something like that, to try to bring them in. Actually, one of the good events that does that in town is Dancing in the Streets. That, I played that event 3 years in a row, I think. I'm not doing it this year, but they're going to have thousands of people in. That is where a lot of people found out about BLT. It's where a lot of us will wear our...
Actually, we haven't done that together, but I've gone down there and handed out Reno Live stickers, great event. Exactly.
Just being able to promote what we have and get more people in, because I'm always surprised with people who want to be involved and it's all you need to do really is just ask someone like, hey, do you want to come to this? And that may be like, if that person that I was dating at the time didn't say to me, hey, we should come meet these people who also like house music, I probably wouldn't be sitting here, right? Like that. So those little tiny moments of acceptance from people within the scene is what is really enliven me and make me want to stay here. I know I'm going to meet new people all the time. And I'm also have a community that will help me identify individuals that I shouldn't necessarily be hanging around.
Dancing in the Streets, though, is a good way to start like mixing different cultural music stuff.
I mean, it's literally on one street that they had. Did you guys go last year? Yeah, where they closed down Virginia and Midtown. That was the first time they had done that.
That was the first time it was on a Saturday.
Yeah, it was on Thursdays
before. Yeah.
And so they had so many people, and to have that, like, you can walk from one stage to the other, and that is a good way to showcase that. And I think that's the only real way that you can do it, is to have those happening at the same time. Because even in electronic music, we've tried where you can do like multi-genre shows, and some of them work, but they have to be like somewhat close to each other. Like you couldn't have like, a lounge show and then the dubstep act and then a bass house. Like that doesn't really work. But if you bring in that electronic stage and then over here you have your rock band and you have a gospel choir or something like that, all those communities are going to start to find out about each other.
What has been integral in, say, with the Biggest Little Tribe? What are the things, maybe the most important things that have contributed to that sense of community amongst electronic music enjoyers?
I think I don't know the best way to put it. It's kind of like a lack of gatekeeping between everyone, that like, and we allow people. Not that they need our permission, but within the group, we want people to be individuals, but to also know they're part of the group. And that's it's a thing that you do through action. So we've had like different groups that got integrated into the group. Like one of them is B&E. They were there from the beginning, but they made their own little group, and they play a lot of things from like drum and bass to disco house, and no one's telling them pick one, right? It's, you get to play whatever you want. But then you have themed shows, themed parties that are driven by one sound. And there's always one group within our group that specializes in that specific thing. And so even within the larger community, you're never going to go to the same show. You're going to have people who are playing different things. People who play like tea lounge sets where like everyone's sitting down.
Right.
Or coffee shop shows in the middle of the day on Sunday for people who don't want to drink and still want to listen to music. Or we'll have shows that go till 5 a.m. if you want to drink. So Reno's very nice that you can do all of those things, and all of those people are considered in the community, but they are individuals, which growing up, that was a thing that I didn't really like. I mean, I told you I grew up as a punk rock kid. If you didn't like the right punk rock band, then you couldn't hang out with these friends. Like, I can't imagine what Gen Z thinks of the word sellout or poser, because like I don't think they would really understand. It's like, what do you mean? So they got popular and everyone knew who they were? Like, yeah, okay, so what's the problem? Right? But I don't know if either of you guys have read that book, but there's a book called Sellout that goes for about 12 bands from like Green Day to Thursday to My Chemical Romance, and talks about how each one of them started off as this tiny little band, and then they ended up getting hated because they were on some, they sold out to Warner or whatever.
Right.
But like
I read that.
That's what I have enjoyed about the younger people integrating into the scene, is they don't have those preconceived notions about what this even is. They're used to going to Coachella or EDC, where you can have all these different sounds and no one's like, why are you going over there?
Right.
They're snobs. We all are, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that all of us can be together in this group under one kind of soft umbrella of house music makes it a community worth being in and fighting for, because it doesn't have these demands of you. It just wants you to be there.
What are some of the general misconceptions that people do have about whatever you want to label it, house, EDM, electronic music?
It's the drug use, really. That like people think that to enjoy it, you have to use drugs, right? I am not familiar. I've literally never done anything past marijuana, right? Like I like enjoying things, but not past anything that. But it does exist everywhere in this city.
Sure.
But it is not something that people do specifically to enjoy the music. It is part of, for some people, but I know, like, for example, at Tonic downtown, there's one guy, I apologize that I forget his name, but he's an older guy. I want to say he's probably in his, late 60s to early 70s. And he shows up all the time, never does anything, and dances 6 hours and just drinks water. No one, and if I told someone that, they'd be like, you're lying to me. I'm like, you can go meet him. Sure. He's going to be there. He'll ask you to play Mojo's Lady, I promise. Like, that type of stuff exists in this town, and a majority of the people just want to listen to the music. And it just feels very history rhyming with itself, when that was what rock music was, when it early was, or even thinking about like using the wrong triad when music was originally being written in Europe in like the 11th century. Like, it's just a different thing, a different preconceived notion. But that, I think, is the biggest misconception, and that it's only for young people.
Right. Okay.
Because that's changing, because a lot of the younger people are native to it and they don't understand the transition from like an analog to a digital sound. They can learn about it in history, but they didn't experience it at any point. So they don't come up with any of those preconceived notions. They just want to be within the community. So the music is the music. It doesn't have a culture that taught them what it was before they heard it. And that is rare, because before, if I wanted to hear techno, I had to go find it. Right? It wasn't just something that was available around me, but I could turn on the radio and I could listen to Motley Crue or whoever the classic rock station was playing. But
something that Joel and I had a lot of discussions about when we first started was what we wanted to promote, what we didn't want to promote, and a lot of discussions that came up were about what DJs we wanted to promote, not because it was electronic music, but there was a lot of them where we weren't sure if it was really an event or not, because there will be places that will just be doing something for the like for the sake of the business, which that is what restaurants do when they hire a band, a live band to come and play, but they'll just be kind of a random guy up there just kind of playing music, and it's not really like an actual show music event per se. Is that like anyone's just trying to get out there and play like DJ out there, or is it really just like, I don't know, you just go up there, just entertain these people for a little bit, I don't care?
It really depends on the specific event in and of itself.
Right.
Like, one of my aphorisms that I like to say is that the audience is always right. It's just a matter of what you consider the audience. Because if it's just you and it's just music for you and you like it, then it's good, right? But, when I'm playing in the casinos at like Rum Bullions or something, I'm not going to play a techno set, right? I understand they won't like this. Right. Even though I deep down love it, it's part of my identity. I will never not love it. But being able to play for them is what I enjoy about it. It's musical problem solving with different people in front of you at different times for different venues with different audiences. You get to find out what makes different people move and I learn from them. Like, oh, I didn't know this song was that popular.
Right.
Or like, I didn't know that this sound was coming back. Like, I don't know if you guys know the genre Jersey Club, but it's a very, very old genre, but it has showed up recently in a lot of new pop music. Like, Ice Spice does a lot of it. It's a broken beat style. And that type of stuff is like, we can integrate it if we want to, but it's not necessarily the identity of what the person is.
So we were browsing around on your Instagram, and you're a radio host for KWNK 97.7 FM. You want to go ahead and tell us about that?
Yeah, so that radio station was started, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. It came out of Wolfpack Radio, which is the station that is at UNR. That's how the first thing I ever got involved in the music scene is when I was in, like I said, I wasn't going to shows, but I am always doing something musical. So I would just mix my own, DJ sets and then listen to them. And I was like, oh, I can put this on the radio. So I reached out, they gave me a slot. And so that's where I first started doing radio. And then the person who was the manager at the time, Thomas Ruffner, who's now the head of KWNK, he's their general manager. They transitioned with a grant to start that with the Reno Bike Project. And so they got a whole bunch of like very early starter money from them. And then they've been building members over time. And so when I graduated, I just asked, hey, can I do this on this radio station rather than at WPR? Because then I kind of get something that I like to do, which is, with the radio show, that's nice is that I have the person who's on the show is doing a set before me, then I interview them and I play after them. So selfishly, it's really just a way for me to train myself as a DJ where whatever that person is, and promote the person who's at the show, right? So whether they're a producer, whether they're a DJ, they get an hour set, and it's so much fun telling someone this that I say, literally play whatever you want. I don't care. The only thing the radio station ever gets mad about is if you're playing commercial radio songs. Because there's no reason for them to be playing Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. Not that it's not a great song, but like, it's not what community radio is for. And so we get shows, like I get to do lounge jazz, and the next week is this heavy dubstep, and then after that it's Playa House, and then it's techno. And the radio station loves that because it's different styles, it's different people, and then I get to promote them, and then I get to go search for that music myself, which is what I love doing, and then mix that myself. And I have a response set to every single one of those shows so that I can, it's selfishly the way I get to enjoy music through a friend while promoting them into the scene. So if they're already established. So
we've kind of talked about it a lot, but you're wearing the shirt for the Biggest Little Tribe. Is there anything you want to say in particular as far as that goes, or anyone who is unaware of it and they're interested in being a part of it?
Actually, we just got lucky enough that the city helped sponsor a weekly event throughout the summer. It took a long time for us to get the trust of the city because, I can't imagine the amount of people that say, hey, I want to throw an event with you, and whether you're trustworthy, whether you have a track record. So that's something we had to build up over time. And so we just started throwing small shows, and it was just like a small collective of people that would hang out and kind of promote their own thing. Like, hey, Chuck's doing this over here, or Bridges is doing that over there, or whatever. And then we realized, well, why don't we just do this all once a year? Like, just have our own festival. Like, that is something that we could do. And so we ended up that we're now on year 3 of the Heartbeat Festival, which is this is our first year. We did not have a headliner, and we sold, I want to say, close to 300 tickets across 5 venues and all local DJs. Nice. And so that we, invite people from the city to come see these things, and then people in these venues start to recognize us. And so we do have. That's the one thing that if you don't know anything about BLT, if you don't know anything about what we do, every Wednesday from June until September in West Street Plaza, we're playing music. So it's different DJs every week until then. And that kind of expresses the breadth of the DJs that we have, that we can have 3 DJs a week for 4 months, and we'll not run out of them.
That's something I don't think we have on our calendar.
I don't believe
I wasn't aware of that.
Yesterday was the first one.
Yeah.
So we actually got lucky enough that, like, the city paid for promotion of it. So like we're coming down in the elevator at the airport, and there's our event with the BLT symbol right next to the city of Reno.
That's fantastic.
So I mean that the BLT started when we did the first Heartbeat. I'll never forget, because like Dead Ringer is our home. That's where we all hang out. It's the place I'll go at the end of the night, regardless, just to see who's there. But the other venues around there, we had to like convince that we weren't just going to do Dead Ringer inside of their venue. And so I remember going into Lead Dog and trying to explain what we were doing, and they were like, "What is this? Like you're doing house music, but you want to have like art in the back?" And we're like, "Hey, just trust us. Like, let us do this. We won't take any of the bar money. You can have all of it. Just let us use this space, because all of these other venues are in." And then now, this last year when we went in and did it, they're asking us how much do they need to pay us. And we're like, "Oh, this is new." You know,
This
so
is a nice problem to have.
But it's working through all the efforts of all of these people in this group, that everyone, I mean, the main people in the group right now are Lauren Miller, Christian Reichel, Lauren Gregg. They're the three people that are kind of the head of it, running everything. But, you know, Michael Bridges, Vera, Chuck Tyler. I mean, someone's going to be mad that I don't mention their name.
Definitely recognize some of those names
Yeah.
from our research.
Okay, good. But so all of those people that I mentioned will be playing music throughout that. And it was because we built that up and realized that you have to have the trust of the community outside of the people who like it, that you're not going to cause problems and you will make them money. I understand how businesses work, right?
Yeah, no, I feel like that's such an amazing approach to have. Something that's really been impressed upon us with, I mean, this is you're our fifth guest just in the last couple of weeks on this artist series. And what's really been impressed upon us is how much work everyone's pouring into their art.
Yeah.
And treating it like, you know, like a grind, and how real the grind is, but how, if you want to get anything done, you have to approach it in the right way.
Yeah, and I mean the good thing is the more people you have, the easier the burden is, right? Like to be able to do all these different things. Before, we had to wear so many different hats.
Yeah.
But now there's more people that we want to bring in, because we don't want to be exclusive. We don't want to wall people out of it. We built this scene up by coming together and understanding. I mean, not to say that there was nothing here before. I'm sure there was. I just never experienced it, so I can't really speak to what that was. But once this started getting built up, you know, we want more people in. We want their opinions. We want their styles. I want to hear what they're playing or what they're interested in, because it's what I got interested in music for in the first place. Something that I want to hear, and then it surprises me a little. That I want that. And so to bring that in, to build that up, and then to have the trust of the community outside of it, that is basically our venues, our promoters, bartenders, all of those different people, that we can now mention who we are, and it comes with a reputation.
Right.
But that has to be built over time, and it has to be done with I think the hardest thing that people have in Reno when they're trying to start something is that they're not immediately successful.
Yeah.
And that it just doesn't happen at all. Even if, you know, Travis over at Dead Ringer wanted to start a brand new music series with a new genre, he knows that for the first few times, there's not going to be a lot of people. But if you stick to it, those people start coming to it, because they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that they were doing a future bass night," or whatever style they're doing over there. So that is something that is nice about it, that we can, you know, have those spaces, and that we can have the diversity of the stuff within the community.
Yeah. Consistency is really key. I mean, with anything that you do, but especially for a town like Reno, when you're really trying to push through and reach a lot of people who kind of seem separated in their own little pockets around town.
Reno's so uniquely positioned in its size and its location. The band that we had here last week from Susanville.
Okay.
And the reason they came to Reno was, like this is where you could go and have more opportunity for your music. Yep. And then coming from Los Angeles, like there's nothing here.
Like
where,
you know,
we're in the middle. You know, there's people that come from a big city and they're looking for a small town experience. There's people that come from a small town and looking for a big city experience. And you can get both of them here.
Yeah.
If it's so interesting. And
my wife is from Gardnerville, and her family, who still lives down there, like unironically call Reno the big city.
Right.
Like they're not
city.
joking.
Right.
They're like, "Oh, you're going back to the big city?" Yeah. And like we live downtown. And then they'll always say like, "Oh, well, you live downtown. How dangerous and scary is it?" I'm like, it's not. Why are you scared of where I live? I mean, yes, there are places, but if you know how to navigate it,
is
you know
for a
where to
little
live.
town, and then when you come from like Detroit or LA, it's
you're like, what are you worried about?
Yeah.
But you were saying about Los Angeles. That's actually Los Angeles and San Francisco are the two music communities that I use as a comparison to Reno. It'll make sense in a second that like they're by no means anywhere comparable.
Right.
But when you live in those bigger places, a lot of the communities are very isolated, right? And they get very specific to their genre or sound. Like, I don't know a lot of people in San Francisco that would go to a rhythm show, then would go to a bluegrass show, then would go to a techno show. But you do that in Reno because all of those communities have to support each other as a larger scene for everyone to thrive. So it allows this cross-pollination that a lot of places, like as a DJ, you very much get pigeonholed. That if they'll ask you, what kind of DJ are you? And that question is very loaded. Like, what do you mean? Because I like to play a lot of different styles. What I'll tell you is what I don't like mixing.
Right.
That's more important to me. But like, I get to play in the casinos, right? Like, even within the casino, there are 3 different venues. Like El Jefe's plays more Latin music, more reggaeton. Rumbullions is much more of an older crowd that sing-alongs and Bay Area stuff. And then Novi is like the electronic one with a lot of like Avicii and that high energy thing. That's within, walking distance inside. And that doesn't really exist in bigger cities because they're spots that you have to go to, right? Like you said, and Reno does have that problem where like people from Damani or Cullen, like they're not coming down to look for something. They're either coming here or they're not.
You are right though. LA's that way to the nth degree as far as everything being a destination. That's a good perspective.
Sprawl.
I've never quite thought of it in that way, but that is an opportunity, I guess, that Reno does have. It being smaller too, like you're saying, everything in order to thrive, we need more of that cross-pollination. I feel like there could be so much more though. Yeah. And
it's taken time, and I've seen it like in the electronic world. Like, I've been to a few rock and bluegrass shows randomly, not to headliners, just friends who are in bands and things. And I always enjoy that because I want to see the talents of my friend. That's why I have the radio show. But in the electronic scene, I just see it getting bigger. Different groups are being integrated in. Like, one of the newer ones is the Desert Beats Collective. They're doing a lot of like the coffee house shows, and they came in probably about, I want to say like 4 years ago. So I was DJing the drag brunch at the Emerson. And after a while, I was like, I don't know if I love doing it. I really did. But it just wasn't worth the amount of time that I was having to put into it. So after that, they brought in different DJs, and all of those DJs made this collective that's much more of a playa house sound, but has a Latin feel to it. Well, that's new. We had never had that. We had the playa sound, but it's a lot more dreamy, a lot more ethereal. Like even like Enya House, I guess that's the closest I could say as to what it would sound like. And then now you have this Latin inspiration in it, and that just expanded the group, right? And now BLT supports this group, they support us. You get this bigger scene. So, again, going back to the instrumentation, that's what makes it the easiest,
It's interesting. That is would you say that's a pretty unique thing to electronic music, where it is the subgenre, where there are so many subgenres of electronic music? You have bluegrass and you have bluegrass. You have rock, you have rock and roll. You have, obviously, there's branches off of that, but there are so many subgenres and different flavors of electronic music.
Yeah, and that's again going back to the arrangement capabilities, right? Like, if you want to make punk rock, you have to have a guitar, a bass, and a drum. That right there limits what you can do, right? But if you want to make, a dubstep song off of a SpongeBob, like, you can do that. But if you want to do it in techno, you can also do that, and it's the same, DAW that you're using or whatever to create it. So that is an advantage, that everyone kind of comes from a place of understanding how this is made. Maybe they don't know exactly, but they do know it all comes from digital stuff. And so that already breaks a barrier right there, right? Where, metal bands wouldn't have a keyboard because why would we have a keyboard, right? That doesn't exist in electronic music.
Sure. Well, it's like what you were saying earlier, is like the DJs all have like the same instrumentation. And, punk rock and rock, they did too, but DJ's instrumentation can do a lot more.
Yeah, and it's not as visually different as well.
Right.
Like if you're doing, a prog rock show, there's going to be like 30 people on stage, right? But if you're going to do, one singer, that's totally different. And the visual element changes how you feel about it. There is no visual element to hearing an electronic song other than the lasers or whatever, and that's a whole nother discussion. But the stuff that's in front of you is all the same. The DJ unplugs one, puts a new one in, that starts playing immediately. And so there isn't this like, oh, they got to have this orchestra moved in, and that orchestra signals to the audience that this is more highbrow. You don't have that in electronic music. You'll just hear strings and be like, oh, I guess we're doing something different, and so that to me allows for everyone to be involved, because there isn't something that like you're attaching your cultural identity to as a marker of who you are. It's just something that, I love the music itself, but I'm not using it as a way to exclude others.
Right.
It's like I'm a techno snob, and I have very strong opinions about it. But if someone has a different techno style that they like, I'm not going to sit there and tell them like, you can't join us. That's not techno. Like,
right.
As much as I'm thinking that in my head, I'd rather have you here than, because maybe I'll hear something in your music that I'm like, oh, I never thought about that, or using that element or something.
Right.
So learning from the different styles.
There's a YouTuber named Rick Beato who is, he's been in the rocks and he's been in the rock scene for decades, and he's gotten really popular on YouTube. We're both fans of his, and he's gone into interviewing. He's basically interviewed everybody at this point.
Yeah.
Sting, David Gilmour, Brian May, like you name it. And he recently had Zed on.
Okay. Yep.
And just looking at the comment section, which is one of my favorite pastimes, is looking at YouTube comment sections.
It's risky, but it's fun.
Because most of his audience is classic rock fans.
Okay.
Probably older, older generation. But it's cool to see like this. A lot of people, this was their first introduction to, Zed's. You could say he makes pop music, but like he's a producer,
yes.
Right? And this is a lot of people's first introduction to someone like him, and it was cool seeing the response. And because the interview, they get really in depth in the artistry of things, and like how much art there still is in an electronic production.
Sure.
And seeing people respond to that, they're like, I've never heard of this guy. This was so amazing. My son introduced me to this music, and I've been listening to it for the last 2 weeks straight. Like whatever it is, I think when people get introduced to it, they realize exactly what you're saying about like this is a very open community. There's a lot of amazing art here, even though it looks a little bit different and it sounds a lot different. We're still enjoying music.
Yeah, and I think that it's. I like to think of electronic music as the way it's seen by both the people in the group and the out group is as graffiti, which is, yeah, you can look at graffiti on the side of the road as disposable and annoying, but someone else saw that as a piece of art. That's a perspective difference, and
right.
this is excluding the idea of vandalism, just the whole
Right.
like being able to see it. So is Banksy high art, or is that still just graffiti, right? Well, that's how I see some electronic music. If you want to go and listen to Aphex Twin, that is something that's going to make you sit and think, how did they do this? Every single thing is uniquely designed. Or Daft Punk, like they do this annoying thing where all of their songs don't have a consistent tempo. So they do like, it's not 122, it's 122.93. And so that makes mixing it really annoying, but that's their artistry.
Right.
Or Flying Lotus, the song Massage Situation, he actually makes it where the downbeat of the actual frame of the song is shifted slightly, but it's empty on the beat. So if you're trying to beat match it, it actually sounds like you're not matching it because of how he designed it, and then does a 3/4 bar repetition before the drop, so you can't put it into a computer and design it. Someone who doesn't understand that's what's happening won't appreciate that for what it is. That's not. But the problem is that people in the electronic world, for even now, are terrible at getting people to appreciate that because we just appreciate it, and for a lot of the people in it, it's an escape. It's somewhere they want to feel safe, and it's somewhere that they feel welcome. And so it's something personal. So for them, a lot of the times, it isn't something that they necessarily feel like they have to convince others of. And that is, to them, I think that's one of the things that electronic music, that's why you'll come to some city like Reno, and we get the comp assault that I like of, wow, I didn't know Reno was like this. And it's like, yeah, because we have this community that we have to bring more people in, and the city of Reno thing is helping. Because even last night, for the first night, I told my wife while we were there, I was like, I'm really happy that I don't know most people here.
Yeah.
Because that's who we need to bring in to make this larger in a way that we still have creative control over. That is the hardest thing in Reno, is once you get big enough, casinos start getting interested, or then they start telling you if they're going to, then you have to do this. And we're doing our best to not get
Break
into
that.
that.
Yeah.
Glass ceiling.
Yeah, you describing the artistry just reminded me. Joel and I are big baseball fans, so if you're not into baseball, you're just seeing a guy throwing a ball back and forth between the pitcher, and like if you know the way that they change their grip on the ball, and it's looking like a fastball, but now it's a slider and it has late movement. It's gonna move off the plate and make a major league hitter.
Brian, you just lost us half our audience.
I know. No, sports are a huge identity in Detroit, so I'm a huge sports
live
fan,
viewership.
No, but you're right that is what I want people to enjoy it more, but they have to, I think the thing is they have to let go of their preconceived notions, and I truly believe that I don't think there's bad genres. It's just you don't enjoy it. Even if someone makes something that sounds objectively bad in terms of musical rules, well, they're all meant to be broken.
Right.
So whatever you like is what you like. And that is, now I forgot where I was going with this. What were we just saying?
Baseball. No.
That's what it was. It was the baseball.
Hey, those Tigers, though.
I know, for the first, but they always end up disappointing. Yeah. Just get beat by the Giants or the Cardinals. If someone wants to enjoy it, I think they have to come with someone who's within the group, because we have been accused in different events or stuff of being cliquey. And I know what they mean, and I agree with them, because we're not shaking the hand of every single person who walks through the door and introducing ourselves and saying, hey, you should join us, that sort of thing. And so if you're interested in some genre, ask someone within that scene, even randomly, or ask your friend who knows someone, hey, can I come to this show? Because seeing people who love that music in that environment is one of the greatest joys in life, no matter what it is. Like when I was in Michigan, when I was younger, there's a lot of Polish families around there. So there was a Polish wedding that was happening in like a hotel that we were staying in, and go in and they're playing polka, right? I don't listen to polka. Like Weird Al is the closest I ever got to it. And it was amazing because these old Polish people are like, come on, come dance with us. And like, I'm not going to go back and listen to polka, but now I have a new appreciation for it.
Right.
And so I think that first step is usually what do it. So when I interview people for Phosphor, one of the most important things that I hear from them is the way they got into the scene is always a show with a friend. Whether it's a festival, whether it's just some underground party, they realize that this community exists, and they don't realize how big it actually is. I don't think people realize how big electronic music really is around the world. But like in America, it's kind of seen as secondary. It's getting much, much, much bigger. But that sort of thing is like, it's something that we all can enjoy. And when you bring people into that environment, just like that Polish wedding, you're going to have people enjoy it because they see other people enjoying it.
Yeah.
Right.
They have to be open to the experience, right? And know that they're in a safe place.
I don't think it's also fair to expect, a warm embrace in every group. Like there is a little bit of responsibility. You have to step outside your comfort zone and go experience something new. And if you're willing to do that, then people will accept you for it.
Yeah.
But I think that can be true of any niche or,
Yeah, that's something that a lot of our collectives have struggled with, is that you have to recognize that is a feature, not a bug. People will say that always. I've felt that with some of the groups in town. But I recognize, over time after being with them, like it's just, if you just go and say, hey, can I play with, like that's what I tell all DJs. Number one is, you have to ask. No one's going to reach out to you unless you have an established pattern over years of doing things that profit businesses. Outside of that, then you're just doing it with friends. And so you have to ask. They're going to say no a lot, 90% of the time. But if you get that one spot, then that's how you get into things, right? So you just have to ask. You just have to, like you said, step out of your comfort zone. That is something that people in Reno have a hard time doing. I still, if I see my friends, I want to go talk to them. I don't want to go up to some stranger and be like, hey, how you doing?
Exactly, yeah.
But I've had to do that more, because then that person ends up becoming a friend, or they
Right,
end up
right.
becoming, we didn't know that they're a talented saxophone player or whatever, right?
right.
Like all of those things have happened because of interactions like that.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
starting this podcast was the same thing. Like we talked about doing it for 2 years. All it took was messaging some people.
Yeah. Yeah. You just have
like
to
yourself,
do it.
you know, like,
Worst they'll say is no, or they don't get back to you.
yeah.
But-
And it's not necessarily like a fear of doing it, but it's just, it's a task.
Sure.
But once you do it, I mean, we've been doing this for 3 weeks. It's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, because meeting people in a scene that I'm passionate about in a city. I've been here 7 years. So I'm not a newcomer, but I'm not
You've
a
seen the
lifer.
changes. Yeah.
I've seen the changes,
Yeah.
but like in 3 weeks, I am so much more connected to music in Reno than in the 7 years prior. And
Yeah, I mean, it's also because, like, I think that Reno, of where it physically is situated, will always be like a stop on the way for something bigger. That's just how it will always be,
Right.
whether it's Seattle, Salt Lake, Vegas, San Francisco. That's where they're going. You know, they're not coming for a big show unless it's, you know, UNR Pace or someone or something like that.
Right.
And we get the nice, like the compliment of, I didn't know Reno was like this. And so that we realized travels, right? So like a couple of weeks ago, I had my DJ idol, someone I've looked up to for 20 years, that I was able to get them to come to Reno. And so I was in charge of their rider and where they're going to get to the hotel and all of those tiny little things she's going to remember, right? Because I don't know if she's ever been to Reno, but not while I've been here. And so we wanted to make sure that she knew that she was respected, she was appreciated, that we really liked that she came here because she didn't have to, and that the community here really supported her. And she is one of the artists who rarely posts individual show things. And she thanked Reno, the venue, or Dead Ringer, and Fresh Bacon, because she saw that people were there for her artistry. Because she can go to bigger shows, but if it's just another name on a lineup, not that she's not by any means, but you know, if someone's at a festival and they want to go check her out and they get bored, they'll just leave. Well, that's not a fan. That's just someone who's interested in what they sound like. And so to have that here, I think a lot of electronic musicians have a very good, or they think Reno has a good reputation for having passionate fans. You're not going to have massive numbers. That's just population, right? But like, when they show out, we show out for the things that we love.
on that topic of festivals, I have kind of two ways I almost want to go here. One, we just went over to there was a country festival, Drifters.
Drifters.
Oh, yeah,
Drifters.
that was at the
That
J
happened
Resort.
a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, at the J Resort. I went over there just to kind of chat with some people outside. And number one, pretty cool festival grounds. You said you live downtown,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're probably familiar with.
I've seen
yeah.
the construction. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first time over there since it was
parking lot.
finished. Yeah, since it wasn't a parking lot. But it was their first time, Drifters' first time putting on a festival, and which is cool. I think it looked really good. There wasn't a ton of people. I attended Base Camp 2 years ago.
Dead Mouse, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the Dead Mouse
I
set.
played on that.
Yeah. Tons of people.
Yes.
So obviously Basecamp's been around. At that point, they were around for 5 or so years.
Yep.
But the people that we were talking to, we were doing some like street interviews. We were talking to people at Drifters that were just festival goers. So like they've gone to Basecamp. They'll go to any festival that happens, in the region that they will go to.
That's news to me.
Yeah. No, honestly, kind of the same. Good to know and cool to know. But how is it Basecamp putting in a lot of work? Is it the community putting in a lot of work to get a good turnout at an electronic festival versus, say, another genre? So that's like the first direction I want to go.
Okay.
I'm curious your thoughts on that.
So, I mean, I think it's just a matter of, again, this goes to the overall genre. So, like, Basecamp has a lot of people who are their quote-unquote street team. So they go out and promote, put flyers everywhere. They're pushing things online, targeted ads. But then there's someone like me who just knows who they are, right?
Right.
And then by having one of the things that Basecamp did that was very good is they had a lot of locals on the lineup. Well, that is basically free advertising for them, right? Like they're paying the artists, but then that person's going to tell, their mom who's never going to have heard of this festival, and that person will come downtown to now see whoever's playing.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think that is one of the most important things for Reno to do, is to include locals. If you don't, it is noticed by the local scene, whatever you're doing. Genre will remain nameless, but there is a specific genre that comes through town that doesn't book a lot of locals, and it makes the locals very upset. And if you do that, those are the people that are going to come to your show.
And they're going to, if they are playing, they're going to tell their fan base of, that is correct. You have a bunch of little fan bases. Yeah.
So I think that is the most important thing. But for a lot of touring electronic acts, they're used to playing bigger things. And so if your opener isn't good, that'll ruin your whole show. Mm-hmm. That's not a problem in Reno, I promise you. But that is what, they want to have a touring set so they know exactly what's happening. Sure. But that's just, different artist styles, different comfort for what you want to play. But I think that would help a lot. I'm not familiar with what the lineup was at Drifters, but if they're not bringing in locals, that's a huge problem.
Yeah. That's interesting.
We're not big enough.
I know of at least one local artist that played on the second stage. But
I would be surprised if they didn't, but just because that seems like a good strategy to have locals open so that you bring people in for the bigger acts. So that's what we do, right? When we have shows, we're booking acts before and after that we know will diversify the people that are coming into the venue.
Yeah. There's a lot of strategy when it goes to promoting a show, an event in town.
Unfortunately. Yeah. When I first started, I was like, what, you don't like this music? Yeah, that doesn't work.
No, that makes a lot of sense. When we started Reno Live, again, one of the issues I guess we identified in town was, like we were talking about before, people not finding out about shows. I do think individual venues and individual artists do a good job of themselves posting about things and promoting things. But unless you're following that specific artist, that specific venue, it's not going to get around.
Bigger scale too. Joel and I we were doing work together, and we were driving around to the event center, and we were like, there's a big line of people out there, and we're like, what is going on? Like, this is way before we did Reno Live, and it was Limp Bizkit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And actually,
no idea.
I'm the rock guy. I will go on camera. I don't care. I hate Limp Bizkit. They're one of my least favorite bands, but that is
hard disagree. I absolutely. It's because it's cotton candy. You're not going to eat it all the time, but every once in a while, I need break stuff.
But even still, Limp Bizkit's a huge name.
Sure,
and you should still know that they're coming to town.
Yeah.
I went to Jack White a couple years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
There was so many people who were like, I had no idea Jack White was coming to town.
I remember that show got promoted a week before, and I was like, I saw the White Stripes in Detroit. That's another one of my favorite shows. Like, you had 1 week of promotion for arguably the greatest guitar player in the last 50 years. Like, that's wild that happened. But I think for that promotion stuff, it has. With Biggest Little Tribe, going back to it now, I feel like this is a promotional piece for them, but I'm happy to do that.
Go for it.
That we recognize that problem, that we had all these fractionated groups, and we'd only hear about these events at monthly meetings physically, where someone would say, "Oh, I have a show over at Low Bar" or whatever. So now if you follow Biggest Little Tribe on Instagram, every week we have a post that is a show from anyone in the collective can push their flyer, and it will get posted, and you can scroll through and see all of these different venues, all of these different styles of music that are playing. And each one of those is different, right? Yes, it is under the large umbrella of house music, but that is very fungible.
Right.
So, you have someone like Mark Sexton, who's a legend in town, plays vinyl, analog. He's going to bring in a big sound system and have that. Then you're going to have the dubstep kids that are taking over Cypress or whatever. That is what the community does. And so once you have that was, like you said, to be able to know where everything is through a collective like Reno Live or different groups in town. But that's what we want. We want people to experience different sounds and familiar sounds with people they do and don't know under the umbrella of house.
Does having a local festival for X genre, actually grow a scene, do you think? Or is it kind of just just neutral?
I think it really. I'll use two different examples for this. So like someone like Basecamp, that is more of a destination festival, I would say, right? Like you're coming for this. So the other festival that I really love is Movement in Detroit that we talked about before. It is a techno festival. It's been going for 25 years. Only COVID stopped it for that year. But that is a breeding ground for new techno people to meet, to cross paths, sounds I've never heard, legends doing new things that I've never seen. I have to have decompression from Movement because I see so many acts, new, brand new acts, legends, back-to-backs that I've never thought of, like that type of stuff. That to me is it is my Hajj. That's my pilgrimage every year to go back to that. So that festival, I would be crushed if that went away. But if EDC went away, I don't really care, because that, it's not to say that people don't love that. I've been there. I was very enjoyable. It's just a different thing. So I really think it depends on what you're trying to get out of it. But if it's for someone who's uninitiated, if it's a large festival like that, it can be overwhelming. And especially something like Coachella, where it's is it now we've lost the plot with the music? Is this an event or is this about music? And so something like the BLT Heartbeat Festival that we do every February, and we learned over the past 3 years, people would come up and ask us, what is this? And then we talk to them, and then we realize, oh, well, we'll play a game. Do you want free tickets if you win this or whatever? And then those people come back. So I think it's building a festival that is run and directed by a local scene is valuable. I mean, that's self-promotion. But if you have big festivals, I think it's really getting to the point where the idea of a festival is like saying a genre. What do you mean? What kind? Because it really is different for each individual person. And some of them are getting so brand driven in terms of what the festival is itself. Yeah. That is what's drawing people. I just talked about with Movement. They have established a brand that it is music. It is minimal in terms of the stage don't have a whole bunch of lasers and everything. They take the German DJs and throw them in an underground parking garage and turn on the red lights. Why do I need more than that? But if someone really loves stage design, you would hate it. Sure. You're going to go to EDC every year and be what is the new owl on the stage or whatever? So, I mean, I understand that I think that the larger festivals flatten the curve of music, where it Spotifyes it for me.
Yeah, I think festivals, to answer your question, Joel, or my take on it, is I don't like we kind of said neutral. I don't think it's good or bad. I think it just depends. Like you said, definitely bring in the local acts for the local artists, and that gives them a platform then to start meeting people and making connections. Because we were just talking about, on our last podcast, that a lot of people, or the last couple of podcasts that we've had, that a lot of local artists don't really have a lot of direction in Reno.
Or a place to start.
Yeah. And I think if you have a festival, it could be, if you have the big headliners, depending on what it is, right? The big headliners, then you bring in the local acts. You're hopefully attracting people in with the big headliners. So you're just kind of creating more buzz around for the city and music fans at large. And then you have a platform for the smaller artists that can start now making connections with the bigger artists that are there and just kind of merging those two together. So I don't think festivals in itself are necessarily good or bad.
I think we kind of jumped the shark on the number of them. There's too many of them. Yeah. But I mean, especially that I also makes sense. You can't make money off of streaming. So if you want to be a professional musician, you either have to be a studio head or tour. Right. Those are your only options. And for me personally, I love music, but it is my escape. If I don't know that I could, but maybe I could, sit down and call up some tour management group, be like, hey, can you give me all these dates in these other places? Maybe, but that sounds stressful to me. I don't want to do that. I like hanging out with my friends and hearing what music they want to share and share with them. Or, again, with the casino, it's very fun there because one week you may have a Chinese religious group that's staying in the hotel, and now we're playing for them. And the next week it's the rodeo. And the week after that, it's a furry convention. Who knows what this city is going to put in front of you? That's what's fun about it.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
So, I mean, but going back to the festival with like a headliner, the very first year we did Heartbeat, we had a headliner because we were worried that no one would come to the show. And what we found was everyone came out for all the locals, and then there was this other group of people that came out for just the headliner, and they overwhelmed the venue. So we actually, this is how Dead Ringer got much more safe because of this one. The fire department was not very happy, but now everything's fine over there now. But then the next 2 years we didn't have a headliner, and those went so much better because what you don't have at at a festival with a big headliner, if you have a local act playing at the same time that a big act is, it's just no one's going to stay with the local. Right. The only people who will stay there are friends or people who, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that. Like there are people who will stay over here and want to see new acts, but most people are drawn towards the headliner. If you have nothing but locals, but they're spread out with different experiences at each venue, you're always going to have different people shuffling in.
Yeah.
So we have like at Black Rabbit, I've mentioned before the B&E, they do like K-pop dance lessons, right? Then they have techno bingo, or they have Twerk and Perk, which is this thing that the Second Rodeo, which is a Burning Man collective that's part of BLT. And so you get to go to each one of these things, and no one there is quote unquote famous or known for writing music, but we all love it. And each one is like going to a different show. And so that was actually taught to me by this scene where I came in as a little bit of a snob where all you need is a strobe light in a warehouse, right? Like that's what I came from. So I just kind of like imposed that. But that is not the style here. It's very maximalist. I see it as like Lisa Frank, right? Just colors everywhere. And then, but all of those people are in the same group. And so you can have those different experiences within the same community. And that's what draws people to our shows, is because they have those unique things they can experience. Or if they have one selective thing they just want, they can hang out there, right? But there's no like, oh, Deadmau5 is here. It's, hey, let's go see what's happening over at Black Rabbit. And those are two very different.
Yeah, I feel like Deadmau5 is bringing in his own people from abroad.
I mean, he earned it, right?
Like, no, absolutely. And that's why it might not be necessarily
that's
like...
kind of why I went, to be honest.
We all of us, when we found out it was, like the people on the lineup found out like a week before, and we were like, oh, we can't tell anybody, you know?
Yeah.
Like that was wild that if the only like probably bigger act that, I like to think of it as, does your mom know who this is?
Right.
They'll know Deadmau5 and Daft Punk. Like that's probably it, right? I mean, in terms of like electronic exclusive acts.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if they are a little bit younger, they know The Prodigy or something, but...
My mom didn't even know who Jeff Beck was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw
And she
Jeff...
said, like, we went to sit out with them, and they're like, we're old. I'm like, yeah, he's older than you.
Yeah. Wow.
We saw his last concert.
Oh, really?
It was here at the GSR.
The GSR.
His last ever concert.
Johnny Depp.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's wild that they didn't know that. That always feels uncomfortable, right? I'm like, oh, am I about to mansplain something you should know? I hate doing it, but
The Yardbirds, Mom, the 1960s with Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
Really. Who?
nothing. No, but I mean it's what is fun about electronic music is that it does get so niche that like some people will only listen to this one thing, but then they'll share it with you, and you're like, how in the world did you find this sound? This is incredible. I'd never heard it. And it's like, oh, it's minimal tech, whatever. You know, like there's so many different subgenres, and they all just build off each other. They don't close doors. It's just a tree that keeps expanding. So, you know, I mean, I'm still kind of screwed up that they didn't know who Jeff Beck was. I can't. I mean, I grew up playing bass, and I love rock music and all of that growing up. That's wild.
I know.
I mean, now that's gonna be like Kurt Cobain with all of the new generations and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I've had to do that a couple of times. Of like, what was the one that there was some, I can't remember who it was, but it was a Huey Lewis that I said to someone like, oh, you know Huey Lewis, and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you mean like I remember they were like, you mean like the pop lock and drop it? Like, oh.
One of my favorite quotes on Parks and Rec is when Tom's like, people in Pawnee are so behind the times. People now are just getting into Nirvana. I don't think I have the heart to tell them what's going to happen to Kurt Cobain in 1994.
That show is I think that Tom in that show is actually a good meme for what people think electronic music is.
Yeah.
Right? When he does the "Is it a banger" routine.
Oh yeah.
Where he's talking about and like
the Lumineers.
yeah, and so he's like, but then like, does it have all these elements? And he has like a spreadsheet where he's like,
a banger.
Yeah,
Does
and
it
like
have acoustic instruments?
Yeah.
Not a banger.
And so there's an artist named Odd Mob who took that years ago. I want to say like 10 or 8 years ago, and I first heard that just on SoundCloud, my favorite platform for music. And he took that vocal, "Is it a banger," and put it into a song as like an electronic vocal sample. And that person is now like, he had his own 3-hour exclusive set with Tiesto at Coachella. Wow. And so to watch that, to go from, hey, I found this song and I'm like the 500th listen, to now an international touring DJ is so much fun to watch. And that's what I love about electronic music is people celebrate that journey rather than get to some point and then say, I'm done with you.
Right.
Yeah. I first wanted to give you a little bit of time to talk about that event that you wanted to promote a bit at the end of June.
Sure. Yeah. So it's called the Sunsets and Shadows Gathering. It's a private event. It is run entirely by Reno promoters and DJs. So Travis Rose, who runs Dead Ringer. You have Michelangelo Pasalpi. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your Italian last name. Please don't hate me. And then MK Ultra, who is a DJ. So all three of them put on this event 3 years ago, and the idea is to have a contained event in 3 days that is a max of 200 people, and they all have to register. It's not a ticket. That is very important for specific reasons. It is a register, and so everyone gets to be in this one place. And we used to do it at this place called Mud Bluff, just outside of like Fallon Fernley, and now we're moving it, but it's the same, where you get to experience all of these different styles, and the whole theme is darker music. That a lot of the times you have to play brighter music to make people dance and enjoy it, but this is a celebration of those darker styles. And Michelangelo, who also is a DJ, Kalichi, who's been on my radio show as well, he is a carpenter and designs like the whole stage and has all these lights for it, and each year it's different and unique. So you can look up Sunsets and Shadows on Instagram or on Google or whatever. You can buy a ticket. I mean, it's a self-sustaining. It's kind of a little bit of a Burning Man thing where you have to bring your own tent. You have to bring it. But that 3-day event, you will meet every single DJ in Reno that plays at any style of house music. And that is what I love about that, is I get to go out and everyone kind of like holds back their best songs that they want to be able to share. And if you want to play, like, I've come across, I'm sure you guys have, like, let's say you're playing like a cover band show. You're not going to play Jerry Was a Race Car Driver, right? Like, people are going to be like, this is a little weird. Like, it's great, or Pork Soda or whatever. But that is what this festival is. Or I shouldn't say that. It's not. It's the gathering, right? But that's what it is that it's the place to have unique styles of music, even within the people who love that kind of music.
Yeah.
So like over the year, I'll save songs on a playlist just for this festival gathering that I want to save and I want to play because I know that I can't play these songs anywhere else. Like last year I had a song where was a like off kilter bouncy version of Everybody's Heard About the Bird. Like, I can't play that normal places. It's just, it'll make someone laugh, but like it's not going to keep people dancing. So like that is what this whole thing is for. So it's, you know, I wouldn't say it's an initiatory event, but if you love camping and you love hanging out with a bunch of people who love music, it goes all day. There's a pool. We have 2 different stages, so I want to say like 35 different acts that will be there. So it's.
And when is this happening?
It's the last weekend in June, so I don't know the specific dates off the top of my head, but I want to say 25th through the 27th.
Last weekend in June.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure to get that up.
Yeah, that's the one that I feel most like. You know, if you came in, I like to think about gigs on how worried I would be if someone woke me up and I wasn't ready and they told me you have to play now. Like the casinos, like I could wake up in the casino, be like, here you go, here's what you need. I like to think of like the top 40 music as French fries. Like, yes, it's French fries, but there's a lot of different things you can do with those, right?
Yeah.
So, but like for this Sunsets, if you woke me up right before my set, I would panic because I would be like, oh, I need to prepare. I need to have the right songs for this gathering to make sure that, because all the people in town who make music, who I respect, who I like to follow, will be there. And so you want to make sure that you're bringing your best for that.
Right.
So it is an artist-driven and attended gathering, which
Sure.
is a little unique, that because it's capped for attendance, you're not going to get the person who's just like, oh, what's this?
Right.
It's you're going to have
It's
people
very
that want to be there.
Exactly. Yes.
Curated. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And it's been done over years, and that's what Travis is great at. He's great at being able to take a concept and like stick to it. That he did that. He's the first person I saw who brought in techno into Reno. We actually met because I don't know if you guys remember the Rack that used to be on Virginia Street. It was a big college club. It's where it was the Arch. It was this underground bowling alley.
Yeah.
So that used to be like essentially what West 2nd is now. That's where all the college kids would hang out. And one night I would play there. That's where I got my start with bigger crowds. One night they decided to do a techno night. Well, I knew that they meant the like millennial Gen X version of the word techno, which means what Eminem says when he says no one listens to techno, just anything that's electronic. Well, I took their prompt very seriously. I asked them, you said techno, right? And they're like, yep. I'm like, okay. So I played techno, and Travis had actually showed up to kind of like, come on, is this really going to be techno? And he's just very quietly sits in the back, and people are playing, Avicii or Hardwell or whatever like that. It's good. It's house. It's not techno. And then I played like Jeff Mills' The Bells, which is this like melodic Detroit techno song that just repeats the same thing for so long. But it's kind of like the Smells Like Teen Spirit of techno. Everyone knows this song.
Yeah.
And he came up to me and was like, I didn't think anyone would actually play techno. And like, that is how people in the community meet, is like, how's this going to go?
Really quick before I do a little outro, do you want me to refer to you as Obi Wan Solo? Do you want me to refer to you as your?
I'm Brian Obi Wan Solo. Yeah, the name
Solo.
came from. So I was discussing it with actually an undergraduate student that I was teaching at the time. Like, I don't really like this name. What did I use before? Oh, it was Anti-Citizen. It was the name of a level in the game Half-Life. And he was like, I don't think a lot of people are going to like that name. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Doesn't sound great. But I changed it, and I realized that I loved the first 3 Star Wars movies. At the time when I named myself, there was like no other Star Wars stuff. So now like everyone asks me about Star Wars, and I'm like, I like those movies. I'm not against it. I just don't get into it. But I always thought that if you could take the like intelligence and aura of Obi-Wan and then the coolness of Han Solo and put those together, like that's what everybody wants to be. So that's the projection of confidence, I guess, is within the name.
Okay.
That even though if I could DJ and no one look at me the whole time, it would be wonderful.
Well, thank you again so much for
of course. Thanks for having me.
this.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
This was super beneficial, educational for me.
Yeah.
I know, and just being connected with you and BLT too, I think is good. I mean, as Reno Live, we're striving for just growth in music in Reno. So I mean, I really appreciate their approach that you're taking, and it sounds like a lot of the community and the electronic music is taking. I think other genres could learn a lot from the approach that you're taking. And
I mean, I hope so. It's something that we did with intention, but not with a goal in mind, I guess, that we weren't like striving for anything than community. And because of that being the main goal, it allows us to adapt to a lot of different things. There isn't like, you have to agree to these rules before you get to wear a BLT shirt or anything like that.
Right. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Brian Obi Wan Solo for coming on. Look for him on Instagram. Find his name on our Reno Live calendar. Until next time, rock on Reno.